Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. Today, we're going to focus our attention on a hearing next Tuesday here in Washington, D.C., convened by a subcommittee of the House Oversight Committee that's investigating unidentified anomalous phenomena in relationship to the process that the U.S. government is undergoing to disclose the information that it has concerning UFOs and UAP, technologies of unknown origin, non-human technologies, and non-human intelligences, which, as you all know from many, many sessions here on Humanity Rising, was codified into the legislation, the UAP Records Collection Act in December of 2023, that set in motion a process that the Congress and to a lesser extent the executive branch has been engaged in since then. And despite all the tumult in Washington, the politics, the uncertainties, there's been a certain inexorable perseverance, I would say, on the part of the Congress of the United States to get the information out. At the same time, what is bubbling up from underneath the feet of Donald Trump is the Epstein scandal, which implicates the president with Jeffrey Epstein in the molestation of underage girls over a significantly long period of time. Others, in addition to Donald Trump, have been implicated: Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, various industry leaders and government leaders, not only in the United States, but abroad, Benjamin Netanyahu, other Israeli prime ministers. And the most recent event took place just 2 days ago, again here in Washington, D.C., on the steps of the Capitol building, which was a press conference that Tom Eddington and I attended, hosted by a bipartisan group of congressional representatives that had well over a half a dozen women who had been in a hearing the day before in the Congress and who all spoke at a press conference about their experiences, about what they were seeking to do as a kind of a renegade Republican, breaking ranks with Donald Trump and Speaker Johnson, who are doing everything they can to keep the lid on the scandal. Some Republicans have joined with the Democrats and have mustered 216 votes for an official investigation and further disclosure. And they need 218. So over the next week or so, there's going to be this epic battle in Washington about whether the U.S. Congress is going to have the integrity to defy the president. And like with UAP disclosure, continue a process of transparency before the American people. In this case, of a scandal that, if allowed to see the full light of day, would mean almost certainly the demise of President Trump. So there's a lot at stake. And this hearing is happening next Tuesday. One of my good friends here in Washington, D.C., who you've all seen multiple times on Humanity Rising, is Steve Bassett. He's the founder of the Paradigm Research Group. He's a co-founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. He's working with the State of the World Forum He is very actively engaged for many decades in UAP disclosure. And he has developed, I would say, a hypothesis about how the Epstein scandal is connecting with this momentum toward disclosure. So I thought it would be of high interest to all of you to invite Steve onto our program today to just lay out his own analysis of what he thinks is really happening underneath the surface of things. So, Steve, welcome to Humanity Rising. Thank you for joining us. His office is just 2 blocks north of the White House. Mine is a few blocks east of the White House. So we're both in very close proximity as we speak with the Oval Office. And so Steve's going to lay out his view, and then I'll circle back and we'll dialogue for the balance of the time. But welcome, Steve. It's all yours.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it as always. Yeah, you're 1 block from the Capitol, which is part of this whole thing as well. In fact, it's a major part right now. In fact, the Capitol and the Congress is leading the way. So we're in interesting times. What can I say? It gets more interesting every day. It's challenging. It's difficult. It's hard on the nervous system. But in any event, we proceed forward. So, a quick update on the UAP side. After 3 or 4 months of trying to get a hearing together, couldn't quite come together. Finally, that has happened, and we're having the third major UAP hearing on Tuesday. It will be held at a different place. It'll be in the Capitol visitor area. It's like underground, if I'm not mistaken, and there will be a decent number of people there. Maybe we have about 140 or 150, hopefully. It will be chaired by the members of the Task Force on Declassifying Federal Secrets. It's basically a committee, but it's a task force of the Oversight Committee. I think it'll be chaired by Representative Burleson. He's certainly been leading on this now for a couple of months, but it's possible that Anna Luna will chair it. That's fine. Either way, we're going to have this hearing. There are 4 witnesses slated. They are 3 military and 1 journalist, very similar to the hearing that Nancy Mace held in November of last year. The journalist, though, is not just anyone. It's George Knapp. George Knapp has been covering this issue as part of his career as an investigative journalist in Vegas, KLAS TV. I mean, he's a high-end professional investigative journalist, many awards, 40 years plus. And he's been covering this issue for almost all that 40 years. So while he's not an insider, he has a lot to say, and it'll be fascinating to see what George brings to the hearing. So we have four witnesses testifying starting at 10 a.m. on December 9th. Danny Sheehan is in town. He'll be there. I think, let's see, Richard Dolan is in town with Tracy, and they may be going, but I'm not sure. But I know they're in town. I'll be seeing them in a couple of days. So hopefully Jim, I think, is going to be able to attend. So there's going to be a lot of representatives from our world there, and that's coming up now. There's been a development. Just this morning, I got the word that Representative Burleson has agreed to meet and look forward to meet and have dinner with Robert Salas. And he was notified this morning of that. This is very significant. So Bob is going to fly out with his wife, and they will be meeting with Salas. I think maybe some others will be part of the dinner. We'll see. But whatever, this will be his first opportunity to talk to Bob about the nuclear weapon shutdown events that he is privy to, he was involved in, and the overall issue. He's been wanting to do that. Well, he got a meeting with Nancy Mace about 18 months ago. But she kind of stepped back, and he's just been hanging out there, and we were trying to move things forward. We finally were able to do it. Tyler Roberts was key to this. He helped out. And so Bob Salas is going to be meeting with Burleson, and we're going to try to set up some meetings for Robert Salas after the hearing. So he's going to stay for 2 more days, the 10th and the 11th. And with any luck, we might be able to get him into a couple of other offices to meet with some members. Where this is going is a hearing before that committee is fine, or the Senate, doesn't matter, not just with Bob, but with at least 2, maybe 3 other witnesses to the shutdown of our nuclear missiles by the ETs back in the 60s and forward. This would be an extraordinary hearing. It would be game changing. It is so much of a problem for the truth embargo that the Department of Defense made a major move to try to push back against it as they became clear that Bob was getting closer to possibly testifying. And that's why they published 2, they agreed to give an interview, and 2 articles were published in the Wall Street Journal, which were ridiculous. They were completely bogus. But their intent was to try to push back against the possibility of the nuke witnesses testifying. That is why in that article, they said that all that happened back then was, in fact, an EMP experiment on the part of our government to see if we could shut down the missiles, testing against the threat of an EMP weapon. There's so many reasons why that's ridiculous. I won't bore you with it, but it's not true. But the fact that they did it is very telling. And the reason for that is this, as far as I can tell. And they've been doing everything they can to just pretend these men have not existed for 60 years, and certainly the last 30 when Bob went public and the book started getting written and so forth, is that when these men testify, it's unavoidable that people are going to hear this, and the DOD is going to feel like it's been emasculated. In other words, this is the ultimate under oath testimony that the Department of Defense cannot defend us from extraterrestrials because they can turn off our missiles anytime they want. And this is not something the DOD wants, but I think it's no longer a matter of whether, but rather when. So that broke this morning. That's very good. And let's see. In terms of other developments, there's very significant development happening this week, and that is the UAP Disclosure Act. If it hasn't already, I think is going to go up for a vote. This is the same bill they started with. It got cut in half. Now it's back for the 3rd time. Same bill, all the bells and whistles. Then maybe the Senate will pass it this week. That's what's expected, and then next week it'll be passed over to the House, trying to get a vote there. Notice I didn't say reconciliation. In other words, they're trying to jump over reconciliation, which is where the bill got cut in half 3 years ago, 2.5. And the reason they're doing it is because they have a sponsor for the bill that's willing to sponsor it. And that is, in fact, Eric Burleson, Representative Burleson, who is key to this hearing now. So he is in the forefront. I've had dinner with him. He's a great guy. He's a good man. He's honest. He's authentic. Very popular in his district. 73% vote on his last election, and so he is going to co-sponsor. Will there be other co-sponsors? Don't know. But if there are, that's even better. Why? Because if you want to put a vote to the floor, you've got to get it greenlit by the House Majority Leader. And if the House Majority Leader doesn't want to do it, it goes nowhere. But if it has a sponsor, that's better, right? That makes it a little easier to make that decision. And if the co-sponsor, or the sponsor rather, is the same party as the leader, that's even better. And that's where we are. It is possible that later this month, the House may take a vote, which at minimum means that everyone will see where they stand. Every member will have to put a vote in, yay or nay, which is, you don't have to do that when you're talking reconciliation. That stuff gets changed and everything till you like it, and then you can vote. This is the full bill. That could take place. If it passes, then the full UAP Disclosure Act will be pending going into law as soon as the President of the United States signs it. Okay, note that the President of the United States is the one that signs the bill that literally launches the UAP Disclosure Act, which is the total package that allows everything to come out in time to us and to the archives in an orderly way. All right, so there is that. That is kind of what's going on with respect to the current situation. There's other things going on not related to this that can't be ignored. There are National Guardsmen all over DC right now as the federal government has taken over that the military, taking over policing in a sense in DC. Now, the latest word I got is that they're not going to extend it. About 4 days ago, I heard that they were going to try to extend it all the way to December. But I think the decision was made by the Congress that they were not going to pass a bill or pass a law that would allow them to extend it. So it's going to end next Wednesday. If that's true, that's good. That'll bring things a little more back to normal here. One of the reasons that happened is our mayor did a very good job of handling the situation, being helpful, being cooperative, not creating issues unnecessarily. There hasn't been any real problems yet. Hopefully there won't be. And so they're going to be leaving. We'll see where that goes. And there are other things happening. What can I say? Now, this brings me to the matter that Jim brought up that is intriguing. To reiterate, the bill is called the UAP Disclosure Act, and it's referring pretty much to the act that will allow a lot of disclosure to take place, meaning stuff coming forward, revealing information, fine. But it's got another meaning, and that's the UAP Disclosure Act, capital D Disclosure Act, meaning it is an act that's going to make it easier for the president to disclose. Right? And without disclosure from the president, I can assure you that formal confirmation, the UAP Disclosure Act will be very difficult to work with. In other words, without that confirmation, it's going to be much easier for all of those in the legacy programs and in control of any documents, any information to just kind of hold the line. Okay. Because until we get confirmation from the president, it is still an properly unconfirmed reality that we have non-humans here, that we have non-human tech, and so forth. And so the two go together. And the Senate knows this. Schumer knows this. The reason they're passing these bills and the reason they're passing the UA Disclosure Act isn't just to have some legislation to get stuff. They know that this legislation is critical to be in place so the president can eventually come out and confirm the ET presence, which is disclosure capital D, what we've been looking for 78 years now, and 13 other presidents could have done it. They chose not to. Every one of them knew there was something going on. Almost certainly there was a non-human presence. They chose not to do it. That's okay. This president now is the one who has got the last maybe chair before the music stops. So the that is in play. The act is trying to set the stage for the president to disclose, which is everything is trying to do that, but the president hasn't done it, right? Like the other 13. However, there is another development going on, which is so ironic in so many ways that it's impressive. And what do I mean? In addition to the 78 years that we've been waiting to get the truth out regarding the ET presence, confirmed truth rather, not it's out. We know it's true. Millions know that. But to get the formal confirmation of that by the president of the United States, 78 years we've been doing this. It looks like we're almost there, but not quite. At the same time, another matter, which is 20 some years in the works, trying to get at the truth about Mr. Epstein and his activities and who is connected to his activities. That is also coming to a head right now. And it gets even more ironic because the task force on federal secrets, declassifying federal secrets, is dealing with both of them at the same time. And so Anna Paulina Luna, as the chair of that task force, here is her mandate right now. Get out the JFK files. They made some progress. There's lots more, but what they've gotten out's been interesting. Get out the RFK files regarding his death. That probably is coming. And then the MLK files. All of these are controversial assassinations. The JFK, of course, is the massive one, huge. And that's her job. But she has another job. And she has that because the president made it part of his campaign, along with those other files I just mentioned, and that is the Epstein files. So the president was saying, we've got to get the Epstein files out. Very good. That's very good. She's got that on her plate, and she has the UAP, right? So right now, that's her situation. Imagine her situation. She's got to get out those files regarding the assassinations. Fine, a challenge. She's got to get out the Epstein documents and the UAP issue. And the committee is going to be addressing the UAP issue, as we say, on the 9th. Well, you see the problem, don't you? The Epstein files represent the front end of, I believe, the biggest political scandal in American history. Forget Teapot Dome or whatever the hell, Nixon, Agnew, nothing compared to this. It's a scandal with so many facets involving more important, powerful people than any scandal, again, that we've had in our country. It has not only the unpleasantness of sexual abuse, abuse of women. It's got very significant financial aspects. It also includes espionage, blackmailing, the works. And behind it all are, in minimum, three, is it not three, forget what the thing is, 300, it's a huge amount of data on disk files, as well as huge numbers of paper documents. But the disk, the massive disk that the FBI got some time ago is where the real action is, I suspect, because on that disk, we think, are videos taken by Epstein. His island is completely wired for video everywhere. We've always assumed that's the same at his New Mexico ranch, certainly possibly Mar-a-Lago. So not Mar-a-Lago, but his home near Mar-a-Lago. And so how many people have been filmed? We don't know, but it could be amazing. It could be extraordinary. And if those films were taken, almost certainly they were used for the purposes of blackmail. Not only blackmail to get what you want, and what you want may be money. And so one of the reasons he was able to go from nothing practically to $500 million may be about blackmail. It also could be money paid for services, as it were. Whatever. It is a god-awful mess. It is the nuclear bomb of scandals. And so while it's been held off, the scope of it and the nature of our world now, where everybody can be an investigative reporter and you've got to communicate about these things, it's hard to keep things secret so much. It's heading for an inevitable explosion. So what does that mean? Well, it means that anybody that is in those files is in for a really bad time. You're going to see legacies destroyed, careers destroyed, possibly criminal charges on the part of very important, influential people, including politicians. And one of the individuals that may be subjected to this is the president. Notice I'm not saying would be, I'm saying maybe. All right. There's certainly reasons for that. And there's plenty of circumstantial evidence that this is true, including how the White House has been reacting to this scandal getting to a point where it could, in fact, blow up, right? So I put a pin in that. I'm saying, okay, if that is true, then this will be the greatest challenge to the Trump era. In other words, he has done what he's done throughout his life. He's had, I guess what you could say are enormous successes, acquired a great deal of money, become president twice, and so forth and so forth. He's managed to get all through that, and that is in spite of a lot of issues that he's had to deal with. This may be the greatest, and this may be the one that ultimately, how would you say, dramatically changes his career track. And this is true for others as well, right? But the president obviously is the focus on this. And I assure you what's going on in this town behind the scenes, I cannot imagine, but it's complicated to say the least. Just as a side note, to give an example of where things are, and the connection to the ET matter as well, is that Anna Paulina Luna has said fiercely that she wants those files out. She wants them all out. Eric Burleson, we just talked about, he wants those files out. All right. And of course, both of them are also dealing with the UAP issue and have been directly. And so the two things are linked up in the very task force itself. okay, right there, all right, which is problematic. And yet it is fascinating for this reason. Because with respect to the president, the Epstein issue as it emerges could be incredibly consequential in a negative way to our current president. But on the other hand, the other major matter that the committee is dealing with could be profoundly beneficial to the president. And in other words, both of them arrive together on the stage involving the same people with this kind of symmetry. Now, what am I talking about? It's really not that complicated. 13 presidents and every other head of state going back 78 years have refused to come forward and confirm we're not alone, even though a very large number of them well knew it. Right? They didn't have to be a country that has crash vehicles or anything else. If you're the head of state of an important nation, you can find out things. It's not difficult. And so they've known it, they chose not to. And as I've said many times, one of the reasons is for many of these countries and heads of state is the United States leads on this. It's the United States call because of who we are, how we defend, the money we have, our nuclear weapons, and everything else. And so don't get in their way. Don't try to take this away from the U.S. It's their call. As far as other nations like Soviet Union and Russia and China, they've chosen not to do it, not because they're deferring to the United States, frankly, but because they are authoritative ideological control states. And major worldview shifts, huge paradigm changes, is not conducive to maintaining that kind of stability within your country. You want your people focusing on the leader, the policies, and whatever else. You don't want them to getting into expansive thinking about other life and galaxies and a future, where we're all part of the Galactic Federation. No, so they haven't done it, but that doesn't mean they couldn't do it tomorrow. Either one of those leaders, those two major ones, Putin and Xi Jinping, could do it tomorrow. So put a pin in that, and let's get back to the United States. So the equation is this. And I've helped build this equation for 30 years, right? Some people still don't agree with me, but what can I say? Is this the head of state that finally ends the embargo, the denial of the reality that's literally right there in front of our eyes, that we are not alone, that we have non-human bodies and non-human technology that we didn't create. Where it's from is a little less important, but put your money on star to star. So that allows you to say extraterrestrials. Don't use alien. Wrong word, extraterrestrial. The first head of state that finally ends the truth embargo and opens this up gets one of the greatest political legacies of all time. That person will be remembered forever. As you go down in history, when the matter comes up about when the world went from a pre-disclosure to a post-disclosure era and actually entered an era that could involve actually being directly involved in interacting with non-human intelligence in a formal way, a massive paradigm shift. The leader that allowed it to finally go forward appropriately would be getting a legacy that you just can't even measure. And I would just add probably a lock on a Nobel Prize. Okay, if you can't get a Nobel Prize for any of the truth embargo, boy, you can't get one. So, if our president were to choose to do that, he would get that legacy. He would get that Nobel Prize. He would be remembered for a long, long time and never could be erased from human history in that sense. That's a big deal. That's very substantial. It's wonderful. And I think that our president is a man who would greatly appreciate that and would like that. Okay, fine. But there's a problem. Epstein. All right. So let us assume that the Epstein scandal is as bad as we think it is, and that it could profoundly damage the president's reputation, the president's position as president itself, resulting in his having to depart his office, and whatever else could come, because there's all that stuff out there. Let's assume that's the case. If the president were to step forward and disclose, and that does happen, the situation will be profoundly mitigated. Right? Now, what do I mean by that? Meaning that this. Yes, you did that. Yes, that's wrong. We're very unhappy about that. Yes, we're going to impeach you. Yes, we're going to convict you. You're going to have to leave the White House. But when you walk out the door, you've got a legacy no other head of state has. You will be remembered for all time. You have something very, very special. It's not, it's not an unreasonable choice. So you got that. But there's one other factor, and that's what we'll call distraction diversion, meaning that that event, confirming the ET presence, will almost certainly divert the media and public's attention profoundly toward, obviously, what just happened in terms of the ET issue. And the Epstein thing will be shoved back for a while, buys time, so forth. So that's an advantage. Can it stop it? No. They're not going to say, well, let's just stop this investigation. The president just disclosed the ET presence. That's really great. So let's just stop all this and just move on forward, right? No. And the reason is this has reached a critical mass. Case in point, 2 days ago, 10 of the victims of the Epstein scandal went up on the Hill and testified, not testified, they spoke with, they presented their accounts to a significant number of members of Congress. Was it powerful? Yeah, of course it was. We have a video of Nancy Mace, who actually left the briefing early. She was too distressed. She got so upset that she had to leave. She was in tears, walking down the hall, not saying anything. All right. Anna Paulina Luna came out later and said, again, confirming we want to get this information out. And that's just the beginning. E. Jean Carroll has a documentary that's going to be premiering at the Telluride Film Festival in the end of October. Apparently, it's pretty intense, and it's going to be more. As this thing gets more mature, people who are women who weren't coming forward before for whatever reason may decide to do so, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And that's not before we even get into the financial improprieties that actually goes all the way up to major banking institutions like Chase, right? And major financial people. So the financial aspects, I mean, once you go there, I mean, you could investigate that stuff for 10 years. And so it's what it is. And they're tied together in this rather interesting space. And so I have been talking about this in a nonpartisan kind of, low-key way, not getting too worked up. I am totally nonpartisan, folks. Trust me. I do not say partisan things in public. What I say in private is nobody's business, but nonpartisan. This is a realistic option for the president, and I'm going to say it and talk about it until eventually it'll get to the White House, and they'll think about it. I don't know. See, but it gets better, and the reason I am talking about it is because there is evidence they're already thinking about it, right? Which is fine. So I'm just trying to help it along. Now, why? What is that evidence? It's pretty good, but you be the judge. It first came to mind for me on January the 15th of this year, 5 days before the president took the oath of office. His son, who has a podcast, a successful podcast, and by son I mean Don Jr., just happened to bring on two of the most significant people in this process, this disclosure process right now, Ross Coulthart and Lou Elizondo, on his podcast to talk about UFO UAP stuff and disclosure for 2 hours. And that's no accident. There's no way that's just a coincidence, meaning I booked them 2 years ago. I had no idea my father would win the election and be inaugurated on the 20th of January. No. And so I looked at that and said, something is going on here. Now, we already knew that Don Jr. was interested in the issue. We know he had brought it up to his father. His father was asked a couple of light questions during his first administration. He didn't say too much, okay? There were also rumors that he'd gotten a briefing or two. Not something massive necessarily, but, one of the people of the DOD maybe talked to him, but it was kind of in play, but clearly in the background. Then he goes out of office for 4 years. And in those 4 years, this issue advances very significantly. I mean, it's moving forward, and he's watching all that happen as a private citizen with time on his hands. And then he's now won the election, and he's coming back in for the second term. And then 5 days before the inauguration, his son does that with his podcast. And I noted that, and I was waiting. That was the first shoe that dropped. I'm waiting for the second shoe to drop. I'm waiting for the next thing that's going to go there. It took a while. Months went by. February, March, April, May, June. And then in July, all of a sudden, boom, in rapid succession, three things happened, which had never happened before, as far as I know. The first one was probably the second shoe. All right, I'll call that the second shoe. All involving podcasts. So it's a 4-podcast maneuver here. Okay. The vice president, remember him, turns up on a podcast. Nothing. I hadn't heard of it, but some nice people. I think it was 2 women. Doesn't matter. He turns up to have a little chat, podcast chat, and they're talking about this and talking about that, and they talk about the UAP issue. Now, the first thing you need to know about that is that when you go on one of these podcasts and you're the vice president or the president or some very, very important person, if you don't want something to come up, it doesn't come up. And if you want something to come up, it comes up. And that's probably true of a Joe Rogan, but he's at a level so heavy that it's possible that maybe he has some freedom there. But I'm going to speculate that even going on Joe Rogan, if you are a president, that it will come up if you want it to, and if you don't want it to, it doesn't. So this happens. Fine. So JD Vance is chatting about the UAP issue, whatever. And I forget the details. The only thing I care about is this statement that he made, which is never happened before. The sitting vice president of the United States happens to say he's obsessed with UFOs. Okay. He's obsessed with UFOs. I didn't know that. He didn't tell me that. He didn't need to tell me that. I had no idea. And does it matter? As far as this being a vice president and everything else, it doesn't matter. Except it does matter. It sure as hell matters to me. I'm obsessed with UFOs. I'm going, okay, second shoe. Now what? 3 days later, roughly, I think it was 3 days. Another pretty high-level person. These are high-level people. Whether you like them or don't like them, it doesn't matter. The director of national intelligence, right? Just thing that oversees all the intelligence agencies. Tulsi Gabbard turns up on a talk show. I think this podcast again, podcast safe, not like a broadcast television show or something. Podcast safe, not official, good. So it's a little easier to do something like that. And she starts talking about ETs. In other words, she allows the subject to come up, and she chats about it. Noted, nothing too profound yet, not negative. And I'm going, okay, that's pretty good. And actually, this is a 3-shoe drop. So this is a tridactyl person we're talking about here. The third shoe drops about 4 days after that, 5 days after that. And this is when Anna Paulina Luna goes on Rogan for 2 hours. All of these you can find on YouTube. Go watch them all. Now, okay, let's start with this. This show, the Rogan show, the Rogan Experience, had played a significant part in electing her boss. Now she's back on that same show for 2 hours and talking about a lot of things, including the ET issue. But she's not just anybody. She's the chairman of the task force. She was part of the original hearings that were held in the subcommittee. She's been in SCIFs. She's talked to God knows how many witnesses. She's seen documents appropriately. All right. Whatever is possible to see based on the various clearances. In other words, she's had a lot of inside contact. And so she goes into it and she starts talking about things that she's seen, documents she's seen, what she's been told by clearly insiders. I'll assume she's not breaking any NDAs or anything. And so what is she relating to us on the Joe Rogan show, which will probably that interview will be seen maybe 20 million times, 30 million times, pick a number. Yeah, got the non-human tech, the non-human bodies, and we're kind of leaning towards interdimensional beings. Okay. Now, if you think they're star to star, that doesn't diminish what she's saying. She's saying, based on what I'm hearing, they're interdimensional beings. Well, if there are no beings, that's a moot point, isn't it? She's essentially basically confirming Grush. who was also confirmed by Schumer and also confirmed by the defense contractors that pushed back to gut the bill. In fact, it's hard to find anybody right now that doesn't say there's non-human presence and non-human tech here, right? But she did it on Rogan, and I'm going, okay, that's all I need to see. What is going on here? I'm saying this is what's going on. If I'm wrong, fine. If I'm wrong, I'm dying to find out. If you are thinking seriously about ending the truth embargo and taking that brass ring and that legacy and taking that Nobel Prize, so whatever goes down, you're walking out the door with all of that. One of the things you must do is test the waters, measure the temperature, read the room. How will American people respond to individuals connected to you, including your son and high level people in your government and your administration? How would they react to it? It's not hard. You just hold the podcast and go on Twitter and see how people respond to it. Some of them, maybe all three of them, they have comments underneath. Read the comments. Watch the news. Was it negative? No. Was it positive? Yeah. Were people liking that? Yeah. All good. No problem. I'm not shocked at that. Right. But if you're, a high level official, a president, you got advisors around you that would know the internet if they stumbled over it. They're going, the internet is good, whatever. They needed to see that. And so there you go. If they are testing the waters are fine, which means that there is a realistic basis to think that the president of the United States is seriously considering ending the truth embargo. How hard would that be? It's so easy. It's so easy. It's silly. He could simply say there's going to be a brief address from the Oval Office, no press there, and do one of those Oval Office behind the resolute desk things in which he makes an announcement to the public that he's confirming everything they've been seeing. He's obviously checked it out, talked to his top people. Yeah, we're not alone. Or however he wishes to say it. He might add that, yes, we have technology and so forth. And you're going to know more about this. And I'm totally supporting the truth process, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's over, right? No questions. Of course, there's no press there. And it's done. But he would probably also say that the top people in this in the government relating to this issue, right, will be available for briefings as well as hearings very soon. And this is all going to move forward very fast. And thank you and good night. And then the world just goes like that. Okay. He could also call in, not the entire crew, but just call in 10 of his favorite journalists, right, in for a very brief briefing and announce it to them in the East Room or anywhere else he wants. Done. And then does he take questions? No, not if he's smart. He just says thank you, turns around and walks back into the East area, the East Room. Why? Because there are a million questions attached to this. And what knowledge does he have? I mean, it's just, you don't want to get into that, right? You want your top experts to be talking about it. Later on, when it's moving, you can then take a press conference where you're asking certain political related questions in terms of policy or something. But initially, you just want to get the announcement out, okay? 5 minutes, tops, done, go back, and then let the world take that in as we get ready for the real events, the real party, the hearings, the briefings, God knows, and everything else. That is doable. He could do it tomorrow. It's not even hard. And so I think we need to consider that as a possibility. And more importantly, I'm encouraging people to be supportive, whatever your political positions or anything else. Let it be known in one way or another in the internet, in the social media spaces, that you really like that idea. You would really appreciate it if the president did this and ended this in truth embargo for everybody, because once it starts, the entire world will be informed, and their heads of state, of course, will have to mimic what the president has done, and they won't waste much time. So people that are going, well, this president is not someone that I have a confidence in terms of what is true and what is not. And so I just, I'm not buying this. They're doing this on social media. And then 4 more heads of state, maybe 5 days later, come in and say, oh, yeah, that's true. We got some crashed vehicles, by the way. We got all kinds of cool stuff. They're not going to sit back right? You think they're going to sit back while this goes forward, playing dumb as the biggest event in human history takes place? So he'll be backed up by other heads of state like that, and off we go. All right. So feel free to put that out there. Yeah, Mr. President, if you can end this truth embargo and you feel comfortable, do it. And then I'll finish with this. I know enough about this to know that another head of state could do it. Let's just say that the issues that were preventing our two favorite frenemies, China, Russia, Soviet Union, are way diminished substantially. We're not in the same place anymore. It's a different place. All right. We're different. There's so much has come out on this that the idea that it might interfere with their ideological control mechanisms is overwhelmed by the fact that one of them will be the disclosure president and get the legacy. And if you're the leader of 1.5 billion people, you might think, I think I deserve that legacy. All right. And if you're the leader of the largest nation in landmass in the world, you might think I deserve that legacy. But you're not the only one. Prime Minister of the UK could do it, right? Prime Minister, the leader of India, Modi, could do it. 1.5 billion people. Long history regarding this subject, going back into ancient times in India with the Vimanas and everything else. And if that happens, if one of those other heads of state discloses, our president will be second. There is no legacy for being second. There is no mitigating factor for being second. There's no Nobel Prize. There's just the Epstein issue and whatever it has to bring forward. I will take questions at this point, if you have some.
Brilliant, Steve. That was really, really well articulated. And I think, like we try to do here on Humanity Rising, it really connects a lot of dots and explains to a certain degree, the method behind the madness. What we've been observing since the Epstein matter kind of exploded about 2 months ago is it's just a series of diversionary tactics by the Trump administration. The latest one apparently is to rename the Defense Department to the Department of War, just so we can be really clear with the rest of the world what our basic foreign policy position is. And a variety of other things that are just popping up in a random way. And how this really connects with disclosure, I think, is an open question. But you put forth really a compelling thesis. So let me ask you your view, since you're in Washington and you track the news very, very closely. How I heard last night on the social media that there was a member of the Department of Justice that was on a dating app actually, and was saying to a woman that his information was that the Trump administration was going to divulge many more documents, but they were going to redact all the Republican names and allow all the Democratic names to move forward. And I raise it because just think of what that means. A DOJ employee probably thinking that he's having a very private conversation on a dating app, and all of a sudden it's headlines all over the world. And
I saw it. I saw it.
Yeah, and that gives us all a sense of just how porous everything that we do, no matter how private we think we are being, it can just explode into the public domain. And that's true for Trump with Epstein, as it is for every other person that's involved in this scandal.
It's also true for the UAP issue.
Yeah,
it can't contain it.
exactly.
It's everywhere. But this little thing, you have to be careful there. Because if that is a, I don't know who that was. If it was a Democrat, he could be throwing that out there just to cause problems, right? If it's a Republican, then that's interesting. But the point is that I don't think it's true. Uh, but here is what is true. We do know that they sent 2,000 agents. I think it was 2,000, might have been 1,000, to go through the files in order to find if where the president was mentioned. Okay, that's nothing unusual about that. It is testimony to the fact that there apparently is more than just 30,000 documents, right? Which is what they just released. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of
Didn't
documents.
they
God
say
knows.
that what they released is less than 1%?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think less than 1%. So I think it was a tenth of a percent, actually, a tenth of 1%. So so they're say, and so they we know that. Then it appears that they redacted the name. Now that hasn't been confirmed, but it's been talked about at relatively substantive level. So it's possible they redacted the name. Am I shocked at that? No, because I think there's probably a lot of names redacted in there. Again, in other words, the way it's supposed to be is the victims, any victims' names would absolutely be redacted. Anybody in there who is just happens to be in there but is not implicated should be redacted. Okay. And so redacting all of the instances where the president's name is there is a way of saying, well, at least as far as those guys are concerned, whoever was doing all that, they didn't see that his is implicated, so he got to be redacted like others. Well, let's just say that that remains to be sorted out, doesn't it? All right. So, and this is you're seeing the process. A little something is put forward and hold, and maybe something else. Clearly, they're doing what they can to try to hold this off as long as possible, and they have. But there have been major articles written. There are now investigative journalists who have spent a long time coming out with their materials. Seth Aberson is a very, very good, very solid investigative journalist. He just published a 3-volume book. You can find it online on the whole thing, everything, including the finance stuff, the whole works. Another article was just written on Counterpunch by a pretty substantial individual, which goes into the financial connection and tying it into Chase Bank. And there's more coming. So in other words, it's happening. All right. And it's just a question of when it reaches, I guess you could complete critical mass. But obviously, if the Massey bill passes, and at this point it looks like it will, almost certainly will pass.
You
The
think they
bill
can
that's
get the other 2 votes?
well, yeah, but I think, yeah, okay. Well, there's a lot of women, and already Nancy Mace has already walked things back a little bit. There's an article today that she is now supporting the president.
Oh, no.
And I think what happened there is that she left that room in great distress. She was very unhappy. And I think maybe they said, look, you know, you're be careful here. But Luna's a little different. Burleson's a little different. I think those two right there. But I would be shocked if it doesn't pass by a reasonable margin. Because now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. It's not, there's not much ambiguity here. There's huge numbers of files. The people want them. A major portion of the president's following and followers want them. And everybody knows that they're there. So to do an up and down vote and say no, you know, you might as well just not even bother to run in the next election. So I think that's going to go. So they're going to start coming out. And so do we need a UAP Disclosure Act for the Epstein files? In other words, an Epstein Disclosure Act to formalize the whole process? As big as it is, it's tiny compared to the UAP issue
Yeah.
and all that is there. But there will be a formal policy. So this is all coming together, and there's some good, there's some bad. All I can say is it is awful as if everything is pretty much as it's been projected so far regarding the illustrious career of Jeffrey Epstein is as bad as we think it is. All I can say is the fact that it might play a very significant role in the decision that ultimately ends the truth embargo for the entire world, right? Uh, Epstein did not have a world scandal, really. Uh, that's something you're making some lemonade out of lemons, and that's something good will come from it. Now that seems kind of maybe a little crass and silly, but that's the way life is, right? You take what's given, you try to make the best out of it, and sometimes it's like almost a Sophie's choice here, and so the
Yeah.
president has an opportunity to do something incredibly positive, and 80 years, almost 80 years of enormous effort on the part of countless people to maintain this lie all the way to this time has handed them that opportunity. It's one of those things, man. It's like winning the lottery,
It would
and
be,
he there he is, last
right.
man standing, perhaps. So that's my thing. I'm going to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
may even go to some.
it's a
Yeah,
fascinating thesis.
yeah.
And when you think about the implications of something as sordid as the Epstein scandal being the final catalyst for disclosure, it kind of blows your mind at the intricate way that the
Yeah.
spirit works in human affairs.
And
That
then it's just
spirit,
not two things happening at the same time. It's two things going through the same task force
that's
at the
exactly
same
right.
time.
That's
I'm
exactly
going,
right.
you can't write, somebody wrote this up as a novel. Nobody would publish it.
You can't make it up. Well, listen, let's focus finally on the hearing next week again. You've been at all of them. What is your sense of what a George Knapp or these three military uh, uh, individuals, what do you think they need to bring into the public domain for the hearing to be worth the effort to set it up?
Well, I don't look at it that way, Jim.
Okay, good.
This is just another hearing. None of the witnesses that come forward have come close to Grush. Grush was a bombshell. Boom. Since then, there's been interesting testimony, all helpful, all positive. These witnesses are not major. I think we'll probably find it interesting. George Knapp is kind of a wild card, but he has 40 years of dealing with the issue and talking with countless people. And so it's possible he may have some revelations that we'll find quite interesting that he couldn't reveal before. But his a journalistic um, need to maintain source is no longer a problem. So he may drop some things that are pretty cool. But major, no, it's not going to be. But that's people are looking for at the wrong way. What is important is we're having these hearings. Everyone makes it easier for more witnesses to come forward. Everyone generates lots of press. I will have tonight up on my website a bunch of articles already about this coming hearing, and I will keep putting those up all the way to the other side. It'll probably be 40 or 50 articles. It's a print media archive at paradigmresearchgroup.org. And so, what is important to have it? Why? Because what this is about is not, oh, we're going to hold some hearings and tell you all the stuff you want to know. No, that's going to take years. And that will happen in the post-disclosure world after the president has confirmed the ET presence. What this is a process that is establishing a responsible platform and basis for the president to finally come out and nobody going, what? All right. So it's not so much that it's some specific information. It's the fact that anybody that has reasonable information is going under oath at the risk of perjury and being live streamed. They're going to live stream the damn thing, right? And then the record will be on the internet for everybody to see. And we're willing to do that. And
Exactly.
there'll be another hearing. Now, but I will say this: things are looking much better, given that now Burleson is going to meet with Robert Salas on next Monday night, and Robert will be in the hearing. Bob has met with Nancy Mace, but she's kind of stepped back. I'm hoping I can get a meeting with Captain Salas with Luna. That would be fantastic. But I'm going to also approach Raskin, Moskowitz, Garcia, and so forth, because he'll be there for 2 more days, and they can sit down and talk to him. Now, why is this important? Well, again, in terms of content, Okay, now again, I'm sort of contradicting myself, but not totally. The ultimate hearing right now would be the nuclear shutdown witnesses.
Yes.
And they have wanted to testify for 30 years. And they've gone the great lengths to try to make it happen. They've spent a lot of money. They've done a lot, didn't happen. Okay. And there's a reason for that, right? Because while having somebody come on and tell you, oh, I worked on the spaceship and here's how it flies and all that kind of stuff would be kind of cool. That's kind of narrow, but interesting. But their testimony is of another matter altogether. What am I talking about? There's at least four men we could bring in. There's many others that could easily end up following them once the ice is broken. But the key ones are the SAC-based commanders present when the missiles were shut down by a craft hovering over, not by an EMP experiment being done by our government to test whether they could do this to the missiles. An utter lie, a disgrace to the Wall Street Journal, and the authors of it had better repudiate it pretty soon because they're going to carry that legacy to the grave. But in any event, this is incredibly important testimony, but the DoD is deathly afraid of it. Why? Because having four highly credible men in their 80s sitting down and saying, I was there when the missiles were shut down, all of them, we did turn them back on. That is the definitive statement to the world that the Department of Defense is not omnipotent, that it can't actually protect us from these entities, that it is, what it is. And they don't want that. That is something they can't allow. And they have tried to push back. The Wall Street Journal article was the last gasp. So when these men sit down, that is going to come out. Now, where it gets really important and why it doesn't need to wait until the post-disclosure era is that it immediately puts on the table something that many of us have known for a long time. There is a very powerful connection between the very presence of these extraterrestrials and the nuclear weapons. The building of them, the testing of them, the dropping them on and killing hundreds of thousands of nice men, women, and children, the building up of a massive amount of these weapons and literally threatening each other with them on a daily basis. There is a direct connection to it. Which is mostly lies within the research area and with the contactees, but it's pretty simple. The ETs have made it clear to many contactees during what we'll call private meetings, as well as to school children during schoolyard incursions deliberately by them,
Yes.
that we're heading toward a nuclear destruction.
Yep.
Some people interpret it as climate. Now, it's nuclear destruction. They have done this over and over and over again. And then they've turned our missiles off and we turn them back on. And they turned them off in Russia, right? And so consequently, hopefully that will go away. Sorry. Yeah, that's a call coming in. I don't have the phone on. Let me see if I can stop
No,
that.
okay. That's okay. No, you
Oh,
don't need to
I'm
stop it.
declining it. I'm declining it right now. Okay. And so the bombs were dropped in Japan. Immediately started seeing a lot of sightings. It took a while to really catch up with that. But before we really caught up with the fact there's a lot of sightings going on, not just Kenneth Arnold. A crash occurs in Roswell. We get the crash, we get the bodies. A press release goes out. Hey, we got a flying saucer. That gets turned around, and the modern era begins. But then we have now confirmation that they've been doing things at nuclear sites and shutting them down. They're turning up over other nuclear facilities. This has been going on for the last 80 years, along with a lot of other things. And of course, the messaging. You put that all together, and the conclusion is this. The modern era of the contact that we're seeing now is being fundamentally driven by the fact that we crossed a line when we dropped those bombs, and the inevitability of a mutual assured destruction scenario was there. And they have interceded here with an agenda, which I think I know where they're going. And that testimony brings that agenda right up. And so the moment they testify, I'm calling up people to do podcasts so I can build off of that to make the case. Danny Shane's doing the same thing. Folks, this is more than just some guys flying around in better airplanes than we've got. This is more than just doing some genetic work in the odd hybrid. This is a engagement of our planet in an absolute critical time involving the most significant thing in the world, ultimately, undoubtedly leading to open contact with these entities and the complete re-understanding of the world, and it could all happen in our lifetime. It could all happen within a year or two. That is what that testimony is backing up and why they must come to DC as soon as possible.
Steve, I think you're getting to the nub of the nub with Bob Solis and the nuclear issue, and I think this is a good point to bring it to a close because it's
Okay.
the point, everybody, that we all need to take in that these beings aren't just here with advanced aircraft. They are here ultimately for a moral reason.
I hope so. I do
And
hope so.
because what Steve is saying is very true. I mean, there have been thousands and thousands of people who've reported direct experience of ETs, chronicled by John Mack, Kathleen Marden, and a variety of other researchers. And 80% testify that it was a transformational experience, and they emerge out of that communication with a deeper sensitivity for the environment, more compassion with their fellow human beings, a deeper commitment for a peaceful world. And that's all happening, I think, for a reason. And I think, and this would be the final thing that I'd like to have you comment on, Steve, because it's at the heart of what we're trying to catalyze a discussion around at the State of the World Forum. It's time for humanity to realize that we're not alone and we can't make it alone. We need them now to enable us to be as wise as we potentially are, but we've so dramatically lost our way, not only with each other, but with the earth. And so nature intelligence, cosmic intelligence are now very present simultaneously. And we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, it's all happening on our watch. Everything seems to be coming together at once. I just watched a not a documentary, but a very important podcast, Diary of a CEO, one of the best podcasts out there, Stephen Bartlett. And he interviewed for 2 hours a very interesting scientist whose whole focus is on safe AI. They're trying to come up with a way to make AI safe. And he goes through an extremely powerful litany where he basically says, we don't, it's over. And so he makes the existential case for AI better than anything I've ever heard, and not far down the line. And so we have all
I
these
like to
things
see that.
happening. In other words, AI is become a major threat. The nuclear weapons are a major threat. We've also got environmental threat. We've got other vectors. All of this has kind of come together at once,
Exactly.
overwhelming us. And the
Exactly.
ETs are here, and they've not left. They're very much involved. They're interacting with people. I don't think this is a coincidence. In other words, we got to a point where without a little outside help, we're not making it. And they apparently would like to see us make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I hope you can join the after chat for a few minutes.
Always.
And thank you. This has been very profound and I think very timely. So I appreciate your wisdom and the way you just keep up with current events with more exactitude than almost anybody I know. So thank you
I
for
told you,
joining us.
Jim, I don't have a life, so that's what I can do that. If you have a life, you can't do this, but I don't, so I'm good.
Good. Well, that'll bring us to a close for today, everyone. You can join Steve in the after chat. You'll see the link in the chat box. You'll also receive the link in your Zoom reminder for today. Steve, it was on your reminder that you got from Georg earlier. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page and you'll see the link.
But can
And
I get it in
then,
the chat box as well?
yeah. And
Okay.
then next week, everyone, we're going to turn to the issue of the vaccines. There's been a major hearing yesterday with Robert Kennedy Jr. We're going to bring in a specialist who's been tracking the vaccines for an update on what on earth is happening in the Department of Health and Human Services. So that'll be next week, next Friday here on Humanity Rising. Thanks again, Steve.